What's going on, everybody? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with another video, and much like the rest of the world, I spent a portion of my 4th of July holiday weekend watching some Stranger Things. Again, I mentioned in my video, my DVD Blu-ray review, that I was very late to the game watching seasons 1 and 2, and then I plowed through them as quickly as possible. And I ended up going to see a ton of movies recently, so that hindered my ability to gracefully complete season 2 and then have a little bit of time to kind of steep in that before season 3 began. But no, it was just like a hot transition. And I went out and was with family on July 4th, and all of a sudden my phone's blowing up. Everybody's asking who's watching what episode everybody's on, and I'm like, chill out, everybody. I got stuff to do here. So I did not get a chance to finally start watching season 3 until Saturday morning. But yeah, there really was this feeling of this event happening. And it's really interesting how shows like this are consumed and how everybody's at a different point. Some people are 1 episode in, some people are 10 episodes in, and everyone's dropping spoilers. It's a big hot mess, but it's a real fascinating one. And this weekend everybody was buzzing about it, and why wouldn't they be? It had, for me it wasn't a long wait because I just transitioned right in. And season 3 picks up as you would expect. Yeah, they like to move along a year. The 1984 being season 2 helped them capitalize on. They like to do a different holiday too. The first time it was Christmas. The second time they capitalized on Halloween, and the idea to make the main characters dress up as the Ghostbusters, that sort of thing. So now we're in 1985, and it's kind of interesting because I've been watching the show progress. And in my other video, I was mentioning one of the things I liked about the show is it really captured the staged look of the real 80s, in which there were some new elements coming in that were new and progressive and all that, but there was a lot of used material handed down, furniture, clothes, etc., from previous generations, and then there was this rollover transition from the 70s into the 80s. In fact, in the 80s even started to kind of infect the late 70s and vice versa. So it's a real kind of weird transition. But then, you get to the kind of meat of the era. 85 is definitely a point in which the 80s as we know it, and people like to market and capitalize on that it was a thing then. Like, it was very 80s. So this show was smart enough to realize that and go for the gusto. So this season in particular is almost the most 80s out of all 3. And it's back to 8 episodes, and it's largely a very just like head down and straightforward towards the goal affair. There's not a ton of side material going on, though it's the characters that drive the show, and all the 80s references and songs and little jokes and winks and nods and stuff can't save the show on its own. It completely rests on the shoulders of the main cast. And again, thankfully, everybody is they've retained everybody. Filmed Wolf Hard's back, Caleb McLaughlin, Gaten Matarazzo, Noah Schnapp, and Millie Bobby Brown have all returned, and David Harbour and Winona Ryder thankfully also returned. And it doesn't, a lot of people were complaining, it's the same old. It's, there's a monster, there's a monstrosity in it, but I didn't think it was the same old at all, because season 2 kind of wrapped up what had been established in season 1 rather well. And this is actually smartly capitalizing on something that was brought up in a comedic fashion very early on in season 2. So it's one of those things that makes you pay attention to everything the characters say in this, even in jest, because you're like, maybe that is something that's going to happen later. It has something. It's not about that same old military medical facility with all the nefarious doings going on. It's related to that. But it's different. And I was saying in the other video, like, I was blown away that they had the ability, the Duffer Brothers had the ability to withhold the urge to inject an arcade in season 1 and hold that for season 2. Season 3, if you've seen any of the promotions for it, it's not really a spoiler, features a mall, which is, that's like, I mean, malls were obviously around in the 70s. I had a wicked cool mall from 1974 right down the street from my grandparents' house. So this film really, I mean, this show really tapped into a lot of feels there. That was the mall cinema where I saw Star Wars, saw Return of the Jedi there. I saw The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai there. Tons of films there. And then, I'd go shopping at Sam Goody and Walden Books and all that stuff. So I loved that the mall became an entity and a very key part of the plot in season 3 of Stranger Things. But there was a status quo that was established at the end of season 2. So this does kind of experience that, kind of deal with that experience and establishes that it has been a status quo for a little bit of time. And some characters have grown comfortable in their new reality. And then some of them have been split asunder. Dustin's been out on a science camp or like a math camp and is just coming back. And they're starting to play with the elements of these characters as they're getting older, whether or not they're going to be able to retain their friendships or not. And Max and Billy both return from season 2 and in big ways, of course. And Billy in particular has a huge part of the drive of season 3. And this also has a lot of fun. And I know that kind of turned off a lot of people. It's kind of the silliest outing, it's the funniest outing, and it's throwing, again, like, I haven't even bothered to kind of tackling any of the 80s references going on. It's, if there's something 80s and you love it, it's probably been referenced so far, or it will be. But there's, right off the bat, from the Fast Times at Ridgemont High overload, there's a ton of stuff going on in here that's, directly homaging the 80s. But there's some sense of grief going on for some characters that we lost in season 2, and then some people are just having the time of their lives, and then Hopper's dealing with the fact that he's got a teenager under his belt again that's going through young love and that sort of thing, and distancing from him, and he's unable to deal with that in a very mature adult fashion. And there's still this little bit of tension between him and Joyce Byers, Winona Ryder's character. And it is a big ball of hot fun, especially Steve is back, and he is now working with a character named Robin, who's played by Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman's daughter. And she's a ton of fun. And if you were annoyed by Lucas's sister, Erica, in season 2, you're going to be totally annoyed by her here, because she's supposed to be a purposefully annoying character and is along for the ride for a lot of it. And the show splits people asunder. There's a lot of different mysteries going on that all end up being interconnected. So Nancy and Jonathan are now involved in, again, there was never really much talk of the newspaper in Hawkins, so Nancy's trying to crack, get her foot in the door, and there's the addition of Jake Busey in here as this real abusive douche of a guy. So she's trying to catch her big break in the field of journalism, when Jonathan's obviously working on the photography angle. So she's constantly being called Nancy Drew, etc., and is discovering her own story. That's some strangeness going on. And then Dustin and Steve become these like strange bedfellows, these best pals. Fireworks. Again, 4th of July just happened, so there's lots of leftovers. Steve and Dustin end up becoming this weird de facto team as they're trying to crack some other elements of mysterious goings on. Meanwhile, and like kind of a nod to Judge Reinhold's ridiculous outfit in Fast Times when he's working for the fish restaurant. Steve's got this goofy sailor's outfit from his Scoops Ahoy job at the ice cream shop at the mall. But yeah, I mean, early on, and first episode, the kids are sneaking into a movie theater to watch Day of the Dead. So again, like just when you think they've harvested every experience of your 80s childhood for somebody my age, yeah, they've still got more in the bag. There's constantly stuff going on where you're like, even the film The Stuff, being referenced on the movie marquee, where you're like, oh dude, that's so cool. Or, so they even work in, yes, a preview screening of Day of the Dead, the George A. Romero flick. So many cool little moments like that, and the mall itself is one big time capsule. Again, though, not distracting. It's fun and it's awesome. Like, especially when you're like, oh, dude, it's that store, it's this store, it's Walden Books. But it doesn't derail the show at all, and the kids are still just as engaging. Their story is cool. All the other side stories are cool. So yeah, everybody's kind of going off on their own thing. Hop and Joyce are on their own kind of mission, and that leads them into some very dangerous scenarios. And Carrie Elway shows up as the mayor of Hawkins, who's giving a loving nod to the mayor from Jaws. And there's a lot of Jaws stuff going on, especially a big 4th of July thing. It was pretty clever marketing to release this on the 4th of July, when Independence Day is a huge plot element leading up to a big town parade and a town fair, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's again killer soundtrack. No Oingo Boingo this time, but I can't complain. They got a lot of great stuff mixed in there. If anything, there was like a little, some things got kind of left in the dust. Like some characters' resolutions were very clear cut. Some were a little more ambiguous at the end of the season. But again, I think that was purposeful on the part of the Duffers, because they didn't want to paint themselves in a corner for season 4, which is definitely going to be a thing. So yeah, I don't think that was really a mistake or dropping of the ball. I think it was just they just didn't have time, or they figured it's something they can talk about in season 4. So there were some things that didn't get wrapped up, and the nature of the mysterious, nefarious creature and creatures in this is a little kind of slipshod in the way that like a lot of the elements are there and they do show you what it means and how it all goes, but there's some kind of confusing elements of the process, or why certain creatures are here and doing this thing, and like why it doesn't all just go down a certain different way. But yeah, it's got a bit of a zombie take, but it really doesn't capitalize on any of the, probably on purpose because it's been done to death. It doesn't capitalize on a lot of the zombie tropes that you're expecting. And it just kind of does its own thing. But yeah, it is bigger, and people are complaining about that. Yeah, I don't have any complaints about that. It's bigger, but it still has the heart that it's been retaining throughout. And there's a secret lair, which again, people were talking about how ridiculous the plot of this season was. And I was saying about how me and my friend concocted this tale of this industrial complex in this town, and we thought it was a government front, and they were doing all sorts of creature summonings and stuff, and occult happenings behind closed doors. So this is the sort of like fertile weird brain that I had and my friends possessed. So the concept of this kind of secret lair and the things that some of the villains in the plot are doing, it's ridiculous, but it's also completely awesome. And it's also in line with the ridiculousness of a lot of the 80s action movies. There's a character in here that's a bald-faced nod to Arnold Schwarzenegger, who by 1985 was a major action movie star. And so again, this thing like cherry picks from a buffet of 80s nostalgia movies and television and references. And again, you could go blind trying to pinpoint them all and make a mental list of it all. And but again, it kind of does it all, and it's never like this is 100% this. Sometimes it's like this weird kind of melange. It's like a mix of 3 different kind of pop cultural elements combined in one, and it's got its own unique stamp on things too. So yeah, the references never take over, and a lot of people are complaining about the product placement. Again, a lot of the products and the brands and etc. in this season don't exist anymore. But there's a lot of talk about New Coke. You've probably seen some of the ads they've been running for it, and you can buy the New Coke cans from Coke directly. But if you lived in 1985, it was ridiculous. Like, it was 1,000% believable that some of the conversations in the show about New Coke would happen, because they did happen. So it's like, yeah, you can argue product placement, but it's completely believable. So it's not like the weird, awkward product placement from like the last seasons of Bones, where they like would drop in like Toyota ads randomly throughout, or reality TV shows like Pawn Stars or American Pickers, where they would drop these super cringy Subway ads into their realistic, unscripted conversations. No, I love that. That was great. That was spot on. It was everything about this thing is again, it's been really fascinating watching it as somebody who came up in the 80s, and just how much they get right. And they keep getting a little bit more sure of themselves as these seasons go on, and it's even more organic than it has been. And again, it's sillier, it's funnier, so there's a bit of that, but it's also like, intensely sad in some spots. And yeah, there was some really unexpected moments of real heartfelt, you could say it's saccharine and treacly, but nah, it was really, really well written, and it's hard not to love these characters and feel for them and for their losses and for their successes. And yeah, again, I just liked how it split all the characters kind of asunder in these different kind of goals and journeys and missions, and then they all kind of started coalescing as they realized that they were all aiming at the same thing in some regard. So yeah, again, kudos to the Duffer Brothers for scripting this thing rather well and pulling it all together. And yeah, sure, some things got left in the wayside, and I'm sure there's some things that we're going to be waiting for season 4 and there are some little Easter eggs. Everyone's already talking about a phone number that was dropped in the show that actually is a real phone number, and drop some information. And there's going to be a lot of talk about some characters' fates and some little bits of dialogue towards the end, what that means. And that's cool, though. That's the mark of a good show. Keeps people talking, keeps people engaged. And yeah, I'm super psyched I'm hoping for a couple more seasons, because one, I'm hoping for 86, and if 86 happens, I'm hoping there's at least one Big Trouble in Little China reference. And I'm hoping that the show closes on 87, and I'm hoping it goes out big in some sort of Lost Boys fashion. I mean, not necessarily vampires, but there's got to be some like major Lost Boys connection. That would make my day. So, but again, I appreciated that they didn't torment Will again, and they gave him a connection. People were complaining about, his connection was stupid, but no, I like that. It doesn't have to be a useful connection, but it's just that he's not unscarred from his trials, to quote a Phil Anselmo-ish phrase. He's got a connection, and it's maybe it's not useful now. Maybe it will be useful in a future season, like maybe season 4. Maybe it's just laying groundwork for something. I don't know. There's this new thing where people expect in anything that's foreshadowed or set up there, they want an extreme utilization of that immediately now, and there's no appreciation for a sense of a long con, something that plays out over time. So yeah, just chill, man. I had no problems with Will being quote unquote useless in this at all, and it also gets into the idea of using 11 as the big powerful superhero weapon going on all the time, and can that go on forever, etc. And not that season 2 had a misstep, but obviously the weird bit there was where 11 went to Chicago for an episode, and it did make sense, but it just felt too much like one of those episodes of like Supernatural or something, where they introduce a whole bunch of characters because you just cynically feel like it seems like a pilot bid. But it did organically, it was interesting stuff, and it did organically fit into her journey. But it was cool that this time there was no strange deviations from that. There was no episode where some other thing entirely happened. It was just eyes on the prize and going for it. Yeah, and again, I love the injection of the movie theater into the plot. That was one of the things that always kind of, as much as I love Supernatural, would drive me crazy about it, because that show likes to have it both ways, in that the main characters, these brothers that hunt down demons, that they've spent so much of their time in like hotels and etc. on downtime, that they're like pop culture junkies. So it wants it that way, but then on the flip side, it also wants it that they're so invested in saving the world 24/7 that they don't have any time for pop culture or learning what the rest of the world is going through, and that they're completely oblivious to all culture. So it's like they're 100% cultured, 100% decultured, depending on the joke or the scene and the needs of it, and it's very inconsistent. Whereas this one, it's cool. Like, yeah, they do show that these kids are still going, even though they've been through some horrible things in their own lives, they're still going to see horror movies, etc. They've got all the cool posters on their walls for The Thing and, Evil Dead, etc. But they're still consuming the product that this film, the show, is referencing and giving homage to. Yeah, super cool stuff. And again, as a kid that snuck into mall movie theaters, it made me flashback immediately to this kid that... my grandparents had a neighbor who would babysit me, and she would also babysit her nephew, who was this kid, and we would get into trouble all the time and go hang out at the mall, whether or not we were allowed to or not. And Bronco Billy was out. I think I told this in one of my live streams, but Bronco Billy came out, and we're like, all right, well, he's like, we're gonna sneak in to see The Shining. And I'm like, hell no, that movie scared the poop out of me. I've only seen the trailer, and I am done. And he's like, yeah, we're sneaking in to see The Shining. And yeah, so that was like the guy I was dealing with. And like, even after, he's like, we gotta crawl around behind the screen, and we're like, we would tear up that mall. Like, learned all of the back passageways, all the staff passageways. We used to go up on the roof all the time. We'd play like hide and seek with people, and then we'd cheat because we'd go into the service halls and like run around and run up some secret stairs and pop up upstairs like on top of them. And they're like, what? We had all the escalators covered. How did you guys get up there? So yeah, we would like sneak around behind the screen at the movie theater and like go up the stairs and be like, oh, there's movie posters up here and stuff. And yeah, that place was our playground for sure. We used to always think it was Cloud City too. So the fact that the Starcourt Mall is a thing in season 3 of Stranger Things is right up my alley. So I'm super psyched at a little bit of a teaser of an element that they're going to be injecting, hopefully, into season 4. And yeah, I'm psyched, man. Bring it on. If it's one more season or 2 more seasons, whatever, they can end it and not drag it out forever. That's cool. I'm cool with it. But no, I didn't think this was a retread of the same stuff that had come before at all. I think it in fact, this one broke free a little bit and started doing its own thing and showed you what the show can do now that the kind of premise of season 1 has wrapped up, essentially. And they're still going to be reusing elements of it because it's the upside down and the mind flayer, etc., are kind of key elements of the show. And they've established the mind flayer as this entity that's aware and also holds a grudge. So it makes sense that some of those elements are going to be returning. But yeah, I had a freaking blast with it. I loved it. And I can't wait for the Blu-ray DVD to come out so I can pick that up and watch it all over again. The only thing I'm bummed is there's no Beyond Stranger Things companion piece this time. So, because I really wanted to kind of sit with it more. Though I did do a YouTube binge today, so it kind of worked out. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought. Let me know if you hated it or you thought it was pretty cool below. We'll chat. Maybe drop some spoilers below if you want to get into spoilery talk. But yeah, check you guys later. Cheers.